Now, the Seminoles were known to not be freedmen or slaves. They were never enslaved. Last war fought with the Seminoles was 1856. It's crazy I be remembering all these damn dates. Last war was fought 1856. Excuse me. When some of them accepted the treaty to go to Oklahoma, they went with their guns on them, and they was not slaves to anybody, and that's from their own words. And I'll play those words. It only takes a moment, but I don't want to get off this screen. So, if we know for a fact that they've never been enslaved, then why? Sorry, I had to stretch. Why would they be given freedmen cards? And then, if they were never enslaved, why are they writing people as slave owners of these folks? Who were you a slave of? Oh, I was a slave of Eliza Bowlegs. Well, that tells me that y'all are using this slave of section, and I used to think this. I just didn't really have a good way to validate it. But I was like, what if you went to the Dog's Rose and you was like, well, I was never enslaved, and they'd be like, well, just tell me who'd you work for, or who was your parents or something or whatever, and they put it down there, because I say that because on my tree, let me show you, under that Love family, which everybody who has a person under the Love family has questionable paperwork right there. Has purposeful, questionable paperwork. Because look at this. You got Bill Love, right? William Love. William Bill Love. He's the name. Who was he a slave of? Slave of a Wilson Love. Well, if you go by the idea that you got your name as a slave from your slave master, then you'll just kind of go with this and leave it alone. Now, for the longest, I said, no, that's got to be like his grandfather or somebody in the family, whatever. Like, that ain't, like, nah, and they didn't just take on the name because he chose to be an offspring of a Love. So, and they say that, like, that's his mom. So, this Wilson Love, also, we don't find hardly a Wilson Love in the Love family except for, like, maybe one. And he doesn't show being with Imahota. So everybody's paperwork for the Love family is questionable, and I believe on purpose. But it's hard to prove why they would fill this out anyway. Maybe this section is supposed to be empty, period, and he should just supposed to be by blood, and they threw him on the Freeman Road and they needed to make an excuse. I'm not sure. But I'm not sure because they jacked with his enrollment paperwork. He doesn't have an interview like the other guys I showed you. He just has a paragraph, and it's a whole nother deep dive story. Let me just shut up about it. But main thing is, I know now that these boxes can be utilized for something else, because what we do know is they were never slaves. So if they was never slaves, why would you write slave owners for all the black ones? And if you gotta write a slave owner for all of them, who did you choose as the slave owner, since they didn't really have a slave owner? And why did you choose that person? Well, Bowlegs is a chief name. Did they decide to put the chief name under them as the slave owner, and it just kind of makes the paperwork go through like that? Well, let me show you. Billy Bowlegs the third. Billy Bowlegs the third. Yeah. Okay. When he gets old, he looks like a damn Mexican. But when his younger years, he doesn't look like that. And people try to say, oh, he was a Mexican. No. His offspring today with the last name Bowlegs looks like straight niggas. They've been hitting me up. Some of them hit me up in my damn almost some of my videos after they watched some of my videos about the Seminoles. And so, and they was like, yeah, no, man, I'm the last name Bowlegs. Some of them down in the Caribbean area in the islands, and some of them are still up there in Florida. And I was like, damn, that's what's up. So no, this man is not a goddamn Mexican. Now, when we get older, our motherfucking looks shrivel up. Everybody looks like an old shrivel up something when we get old, okay, to a degree. So we can't go by those looks. We have to go by what he looked when he was young. It's not a goddamn Mexican, okay? But this was Bowlegs. These were your Bowlegs. And funny enough, that's who they put down as the slave owner. Now it's a Eliza Bowlegs, not Billy. I have to look up which one is Eliza, but she's in the Bowlegs line, which would have been in a Negro, right? A black person, a black Indian, who was their slave owner. But because of this paperwork, they labeled them as slaves. And because of that, they tricked them out of their money. Let me show you that since I'm already on the topic. And they tricked them out of their money just based upon that shit. They was like, well, you really can't get none of that money because technically you was a slave. And slaves really are entitled to this and blah, 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 blah. Get the hell out of here, man. These niggas be bullshitting you. Because technically they were not slaves. But they were not slaves. Not technically. They were not slaves. But technically on paper at that time, because of the DOS rolls that they forced them on, and they probably didn't know what they was doing. They was just like, freedmen, all right, whatever. Yeah, throw me up. They probably thought it was freeman. I think that's where they kind of fucking with us on that wordplay too. They probably thought it was free man paperwork and it was freedman paperwork, right? But here's the first one that says, hey, we wasn't no slaves. We had our guns on us.
But they had to come with their guns on. So you see, the freedmen came here with their guns on. They said the freedmen were slaves to the Indian, but slaves don't wear no guns.
They said the freedmen came here with their guns on them. And they said the freedmen were slaves to the Indians, but slaves don't wear no guns. Basically, they would have had to face. They would have had to face them guns if they wanted any of this. What's up, Candace? Appreciate that. It's good to see you this morning. They would have had to face them guns if they wanted to make them some slaves for the next only what 1865 to 1856 to 1865, less than 10 years before slavery had ended. So they never was enslaved, but they still tricked them out of their money right here.
Nearly 200 years now, nearly 200 years later, comes the $56 million payment from the federal government to compensate the tribe for those lost Florida lands. But the black Seminoles can't share in it because the government and the tribe say they were slaves of the red Seminoles back then, and as slaves could not have owned land.
Now that's fucked up because when you look at the paperwork of the Seminoles, some of them, if not all of them, let me get back to it. Oh. Hopefully I have it in here. I be trying to stop smacking so much. My damn microphone be picking up my smacks like crazy, and my playbacks I be smacking like crazy. I guess I'm just a lip smacking nigga. But this is Bowleg. So if it's true that they were slaves to red Indians, well, why is the slave owner last name Bowlegs and the last name of people who was Bowlegs look like Mr. Billy Bowlegs that I just goddamn showed? Is that a red Indian he was a slave of? No. Paperwork says he was a slave of a black Indian, but he wasn't no slave. That was just likely y'all playing with the paperwork and putting down the tribal leader as the motherfucking slave owner. Well, fuck it, just throw him down there. Yeah, throw somebody down now on that paper. And you would think it's harmless until later on they come and they got to get compensated for the motherfucking $56 million. And you talking about people who have been in Seminole band leaders from the earliest of time. This is 1700 Seminole, okay? And his wife, who was a Spaniard. But regardless of that, you talking about some early times. And they be just, and they tricked him out of they pay. I'm like, why is it? I must have accidentally put the Miwok Indian shit in here. I'm like, why is that shit in here? But because they signed that paperwork, and here's like your Seminoles, like these people, these would be your Red Indians at the time. This is from the Gilcrease Archives, and this was some Seminoles at the time. Spaniards, Middle Eastern looking motherfuckers, and some Chinese looking motherfuckers. But they wasn't the only Seminoles, because the black Seminoles are also in this bitch too. Okay? They're here. They don't look like no Mexicans, whoever said that. Just because they know how to straighten their hair or their hair is hella straight, however they do it, don't mean they no goddamn Mexicans. And a Mexican is typically a Mexican, a mix of something. These niggas are so dark, you can't say shit. Look at them facial features and everything. Like, get the hell out of here. Get the entire hell out of here. Fucking with my folks. They ain't my folks, but they my folks. Okay? So you got all these that were there, right? Chick like that right there. She almost looked like Queen Quet ass. And stuff like that. But then you would also have stuff like this. I don't think that's a Seminole. I don't think that might have been the Seminole. Do I have the full photo? No. These are agents and assist. Possibly Cheyenne and Darlington. What are agents? People that are assigned to come, do the bidding of the YT government, amongst the tribes. Hi, baby. These ain't Seminoles. I don't know why I saved these in here, because these ain't Seminoles. Yeah, these ain't Seminoles. I must have accidentally saved them in this folder. Or maybe I was making fun of these people, because, like, this is supposed to be a Creek Indian. And it could be, the closer I get, but she'd be hella mixed. Like, she looked like she could be one of your real mulattoes, to be honest. You got her, that's a real Seminole. So you got your Seminoles, right? That's the Tallahassee School. That's not, I don't know why that's in here. Your Seminole folks. These are some Seminoles circa 1870. Band of Seminole Scouts banded in 1870. Now these are some Seminoles, okay? 1870. That's just 5 years after the end of slavery. They was never enslaved. They had been fighting since 1856, I'm sorry. 1856. And these are the people who was goddamn fighting. These are your people who was whipping goddamn ass. Okay? Let's see, it says circa 1870, about 50 in number, served as skilled trackers and distinguished themselves in numerous military engagements. 4 black Seminole Indian Scouts received the Congressional Medal of Honor, while the black Seminole served the nation with honor. The government's promise to provide the community with food and land was never fulfilled. The unit was disbanded in 1881. So these are your Seminoles.
They were uneducated, they were illiterate, and you had people coming from the east, opportunists that maybe wanted to steal their land or take their land. So the government basically wanted to protect the citizens because they were citizens.
Right.
They wanted to protect their land. So they had a freedman roll. If you had any black ancestry in you, they put you on a freedman roll,
Okay.
which was a form of discrimination.
Let me ask you this then. Okay, that brings us to a point. So we have a freedman roll and even Chickasaw, Choctaw, they had two roles.
They had two roles.
And so you might think that if you were on the, say, Chickasaw roll for just a regular roll, then you had blood. And if you're on the Freeman roll, then you automatically did not have any Indian blood. It was all African blood. Is that what actually was? That the people on the Freeman roll did not have any Indian blood?
In a lot of cases, you had people that was put on the freedman roll that actually had blood. But just by that one drop rule, or if it's however.
I mean, you gotta excuse all their old terminologies and a little bit of propaganda that they were African or and these people, technically all the people were Indians that were black. So what you have really here, this is what you have happened. What happened? So this is what happened.